questions in the chat, I may not see those questions, but there are not a ton of you in the room, so it may be easy for me to catch everything. But don't take a chance. Go ahead and just put the questions in the Q&A section. So give me a second here. I'm going to also go to the private blog and answer some of your questions. So don't forget that that all these sessions are recorded. They're saved in powernomicsmasterclass.com. And also you have access to the private blog where you can submit questions and things like that. So give me 1 second here. I'm trying to make sure I can see my glasses. They feel smudgy. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to look at some questions you guys left. Okay, let me see here. Here we go. Aaron says, what's preventing Native Blacks from practicing group economics so that we can begin to develop new codes of conduct for the community? What's stopping us? Well, I mean, nothing's stopping us except for us, for the most part. Now, you could argue that if you go back into some of the stuff we studied in class in terms of slave codes and, the black codes and everything else, I mean, these things were designed for division. A lot of these people knew that Black power, one of the keys to Black power was Black people coming together. So that's why you didn't want slaves to be congregating and things like that. Because when they congregate, that's when people form good ideas and they start to coordinate. And so, the divided Black community was the favored Black community. So they would basically do whatever they could to make sure that we did not work together or coordinate on anything, and that we were divided, that we will focus more on what Dr. Anderson refers to as the horizontal issues. The horizontal issues, like I don't like you because I'm a different religion from you, or I'm a different gender from you, or I'm a different age from you, or I'm a house Negro, or you're a field Negro. All these things were done to divide. And if you read some of the books, like one of the books that I have my students read in the Black Business School is called How the Jews Invented Hollywood. And it's a very good book all about how Hollywood was created by these Eastern European Jews who were pretty marginalized. Nobody's experience is like the Black experience, but they were pretty much shut out from a lot of stuff. I was really kind of surprised by how much people went out of their way to not want, to not want their kids to go to school with Jews. They didn't want their children. They didn't want the people to come work for them. They didn't want to do business with them, things like that. So they came together as a community and built Hollywood. And then also what happened though was that you had two factions of that community. You had more conservative, individuals, maybe Orthodox, etc. Then you have the liberal types, the ones that are into all kinds of real liberal stuff, the drugs or whatever. And they came together though when there was this guy called Hitler who came along who was a threat to everybody. They all kind of said, okay, we got to get past our division because we all agree that we have this common threat. So when you have this common threat, then you got to come together for that. Let's see. Adrian says, did everyone get the email yesterday for Powernomics class yesterday? I couldn't get into the live session. Well, you know what? I'm trying to think here. I think I sent an email out the day before, but also if you log into powernomicsmasterclass.com, you can actually find the link right now that will get you into the next session, right? So when Dr. Anderson and I meet on Thursdays, that link is already there. If you go into the curriculum section at the top, all you got to do is click on it where it says click here to get access to Dr. Anderson and Dr. Watkins sessions, or click here to get access to Dr. Watkins office hours on Friday. You hit those links and there's a Zoom link in there. It's a private Zoom that only students can get into. So that's what you want to click on. So just keep that link, or just log in and go to that link each week. And we're going to meet at the same time. I'm going to do my Friday session every Friday at the same time. We're going to do our Thursday class every Thursday at the same time. So, and then sometimes I'll send out an email. The big problem I have with the system actually is that the system, for some reason, sometimes Teachable will send the email out like 3 hours after I send it out. So if I send it, at 2 o'clock to prepare for something that happens at 5, it may not go out until 6, and then people get it late, and then that becomes a challenge, right? So But it's already there. You can get it even right now for next week if you want to. Just log in. And also the recording from the class Dr. Anderson and I did yesterday should be available. You can go to powernomicsmasterclass.com. And also all the other recordings for every other thing that we've ever done is in there too. Plus a ton of other content from Dr. Anderson is in there. There's a lot of good stuff. Bridget says, what is the end game for this Powernomics course, especially in light of Dr. Anderson saying that this is his last year speaking? Well, the end game is to train the community on Powernomics. That's the first thing. Because a lot of folks don't even, think about this. We're trying to even convince some people to even believe in things as basic as getting something for your vote. Just the idea of Black people simply saying that we want something for our vote, that was seen as this crazy radical idea. Like, oh my God, you mean Black people asking for something? Like, who came up with that crazy stuff, right? So, I see this as the beginning of a long journey. This is not, Dr. Anderson's role in this was, of course, very seminal. My role is seminal. Your role is seminal. There's a lot that's going to have to be done. It's a long-term plan. Now, short-term, Dr. Anderson did mention in class the Powernomics plan. And the Powernomics plan, which included a high-speed railroad, the Office of Native Black Affairs, enforcement of the 1866 Indian Treaty, where we're supposed to get the same benefits as Native Americans, et cetera, or the study to make sure that all immigration policies are not harmful to Native Black people. All those things are things that are kind of ongoing. These are discussions that are being had. What will probably occur, in my opinion, is that you're not going to see the individuals that have access to, say, Joe Biden, really talking about Powernomics directly. It's still going to be sort of, almost seen as a fringe thing where the new Black media, people like Vicky Dillard and Tariq Nasheed, will continue to talk about the issue and kind of be a thorn in the side of the mainstream Blacks, who that so-called Black leadership class is actually a barrier to progress for Black people. Most of the time, the politicians don't represent Black people. I said, a lot of our Black politicians, we might as well call them the help. Because they're not here for Black people. They're here for the people they work for. So I don't call them politicians anymore. I call them the help, unless they prove otherwise. So the help is going to do what the help does. That's what they were hired to do, which was to maintain the status quo and to protect, and protect. Give me 1 second here. Hold on. To protect whatever, their bosses have told them to do and things like that. So I personally think that that's not going to lead to much progress. But what is occurring is you are hearing even the Black Lives Matter activists saying that they want something back for their vote. But what they're asking for is very different from what we're asking for, right? So what they're asking for is we want police reform. And Dr. Anderson's theory is that police reform, while it might be important, it's not as important as things like reparations or putting wealth and income into the Black community so we can create jobs and take care of ourselves economically, right? Because a lot of these events that occur with police, some of them, some of the guys that get in the tough situations with cops, if their families had more assets and resources to draw from, maybe those situations would never have occurred. The police don't shoot a lot of rich people. They don't shoot a lot of people that are doing well in nice neighborhoods, Black or white. They just don't. It's just a fact. So Dr. Anderson says that if you control the economics, then you can control the politics, which allows you to then control the education, to control the policing, to control the media and things like that. So the economic agenda is, at the very least, it should be something that's included in the conversations that are being had. And they're not there yet where they're even talking about the economic agenda, because they take their cues and their orders from their bosses. Their bosses are usually white people like George Soros or whatever. And George Soros doesn't want Black people to talk about economics. But you think about this. This is interesting, right? George Soros is a billionaire. He's been thinking about economics his whole life. He can't do the things he does because he's a great activist. He gets things done because he's got billions of dollars in resources that he can reach for to pursue his agenda. There's no greater fuel for your agenda than having assets in the bank. I can just tell you that right now. All right, so let me see here. What's the okay? Sorry. We already asked about the end game. And I don't believe Dr. Anderson's done speaking. I personally think Dr. Anderson's going to speak for the rest of his life. You know, he's like Jay-Z. You know, Jay-Z I think is retired about 5 times from rapping, and then the next year he'll come out with a new album. Um, Adrian, how do you deal with social cohesiveness once you come into these truths? Um, I my argument, my approach is more of a libertarian approach that says um, I live and let live. You know, I let people just be who they want to be, and as long as you don't interrupt me being who I am, I'm not going to give you any problems. And I think that's worked for me. And so sometimes conflict can emerge when people start to tell you what you're not allowed to do. Like I get real irritated when people tell me that I have to vote. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do nothing. And you could say all day that you want me to do this and want me to do that, but if I don't like the candidate, I'm not supporting that candidate. So, in fact, I think when you have so many black people that are pressured into telling other black people to vote, even if we're voting for no reason, I think a good test would be to see what would happen if all black people just simply picked another party and just said we're going to go with that party. Maybe not Republican, right? Maybe Libertarian. They seem like decent people. I pick Libertarian. I don't know. I'm not telling you to be Libertarian because that would be kind of in contradiction to libertarian ideas, right? But what if 10 million black people just said, we're going to be libertarians next time, and we just want you to know that we're here. And if you want our vote, you got to come up with a better candidate. If you come up with a better candidate, you'll get our vote. If you don't come up with a better candidate and with a better set of policies, then you won't get our vote. I bet you that if black people all went to another party, all those like get out the vote campaigns would disappear. It's a real basic idea, but the reason that think about it, when they talk about your agenda, they'll say, well, we're thinking about what we want to do for black people, and black people will say reparations. We want income, we want wealth, we want access to opportunity for our businesses. They'll say, oh no, we think you need voting rights. They won't even hear you. Like it's talking to an echo chamber, right? So you'll say, no, we want this thing over here. They'll be like, no, what you really need is that thing over there, right there. That right there is an insult to you as black people because they're pretty much treating you like your parents do. Your parents always felt like I know what's best for you because you're just a child. Like with our kids, our 10-year-old can tell us what she wants, but we know what's best for her, right? But if you're an adult, then you should know what's best for yourself. So, and if I respect you as an adult, I'm going to give you what you want, not what I think you deserve, right? So they'll always fight for the voting rights, and it's really interesting to me that people don't understand the reason they fight so hard for voting rights is because voting rights don't benefit you. Voting rights benefit them. That's like every year, if I say to Alicia, well, what do you want for your birthday? And she says, I want a trip to Tahiti, and I say, no, instead I got you a new vacuum cleaner. Because I'm gonna fight to the death for you to have the right to have the best vacuum cleaner in the city, so that you can really clean this house really well. And then she says, "No, boys, I didn't want a vacuum cleaner. I really would like I'd like a new purse, so a fancy purse." And I say, "Well, no, instead I got you some good pots and pans because you need to be able to cook some good meals." For us. So I got you the best pots and pans in the city. Well, that's not really me doing anything for her. That's me doing something for myself. Do you understand? So just make sure you know the difference there. Fred Hayes says the Boulay talented 10th slows the progress. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, right? They're there. I don't really necessarily even think we have to necessarily identify them as so-called enemies per se. But I do think that it's important to know that sometimes their interests are not the same as your interests. And it's real basic. The model is very simple. The model says that if I want to control the black community, I don't have to appeal to the entire black community. If I want to control the black community, I don't really need permission from every black person. I only need permission from the gatekeepers and the influencers. If I take care of the gatekeepers and the influencers, then that's a better that's a better deal for me than having to appeal to the masses or appeal to grassroots. Well, why is that? Well, here's the deal. If I'm trying to control the black community and I go to the grassroots, I go to the people, and I really take care of the people, then I'm going to have to do almost like a partnership or a revenue share situation where I'm going to have to take care of 10, 20, 30, 40 million people. That's very expensive. That might cost me, to the tune of several $billions, right? But if I just go, what if I just go to the gatekeepers and the influencers? So I go to 5 people, each of whom can influence, 5 million people apiece. So I can control 25 million people by just making sure I take care of those 5. So if I take care of those 5, then I don't need to worry about the other 25 million because I've taken care of the 5 that matter. So the 5 that matter, particularly if they're individuals who are not good negotiators, who don't have good ethics, who are really desperate for money, right? I know their vulnerabilities. Like I know if you've got a criminal charge hanging over your head and you're worried about getting a federal investigation, well, I can make that go away. This is real. So I'm using real examples here. There was a certain civil rights leader who shall remain nameless, whom before the Obama presidency was facing severe financial hardship, almost bankruptcy, and potential, serious legal issues. And basically, because this person agreed to play ball in a specific way, all that stuff went away, right? So effectively, if I know what their vulnerabilities are, if I know what their desires are, if I know what their needs are, okay, you're worried about this problem over here that I can make go away. You really want to be invited into the mainstream, so we're going to have the White House Christmas party. I'm going to make sure you get invited to that. And then also, I know you're desperate for money because maybe you don't have very many skills that are marketable, or you don't run a business, or you don't have an economic base. So I can donate, $1 million to your organization, or I can give you $500,000 if you can put in your bank account. That's how things get done. One thing that Byron Allen mentioned that I thought was really profound was he talked about how Comcast was trying to get their merger deal to go through, and they needed approval from the civil rights community. So what they did was they brought Al Sharpton on as a consultant, and they paid Al Sharpton a consulting fee that was probably maybe $300,000 or $500,000. It wasn't a whole lot of money. And Byron Allen, the guy he's a billionaire, he's made a lot of money. He said they bought the black community for a bucket of chicken, because the people that are doing a business deal. I think that merger, I can't remember the total economic value of that merger and how much money was allowed to be made because the merger went through. Let me see here. How much? Let's see. Let me see what the value of the Comcast merger was. The economic value of the Comcast merger was $45 billion, right? So basically, I can get a $45 billion merger through by paying some guy $500,000. Well, that's nothing. Like they pay $500,000 in an hour, right? Like that's literally nothing, right? And so basically, it's tantamount to the worst kind of political corruption, because the worst politicians in the world that you want representing you are politicians who are desperate for money, because they'll give big contracts to corporations worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and all the person that's given is maybe a paper bag full of money, 20 grand in an envelope or whatever. So effectively, that's kind of how things get done in the black community, and that's the danger of breeding sheep. You do not want to breed sheep in your community, because what the sheep will do is they will just follow the so-called leader. The person that I'm not a fan of black leadership. I don't believe in that. I think that you should let go of that notion entirely and commit yourself to just being a black leader, and look for black advisors that you trust. Maybe I'm one of them. Maybe I'm a person that you trust that I can give you advice, but don't let me lead you. Don't let me just tell you to do something that doesn't make sense. And don't just say I'm going to do it just because Dr. Boy said it. Do it because maybe I've convinced you, though, almost like an attorney convinces a judge. Maybe I've laid out the evidence and made a good case, and you've been persuaded to say, that makes sense for me and my family. I think I'm going to do that. Okay, and if you don't do it, I'm not going to be offended. So that's to me the difference between malevolent and benevolent people. Malevolent people are the ones who will tell you to do something just because it may benefit them but doesn't benefit you. And then also, if you ask questions, they get offended, or if you do something different, they get offended. So anyway, let me dig in that and answer some more questions. How many stocks should be added to our Cash App or Stash App? Well, you can actually invest by. I'm sorry, I missed your name. I accidentally deleted it. I'm so sorry. James. Okay. So James wants to know how many stocks should be added to our Cash App. You can be diversified with one stock. Seriously. In fact, if you go to the blackagenda.com, the allblackagenda.com, the allblackagenda.com, I put together a list of resources that most of them are free. Some of them are low cost, but most of them are free that you can use to pursue your own family's black agenda. And it starts with wealth and education, which I think are two of the great pillars of our community. The rest relate to culture and relationships and things like that. But on the allblackagenda.com, there should be a link to my $5 a day investing plan. The $5 a day investing plan, and also I did a video on this on financialjuneteenth.tv.com. The $5 a day investing plan is, to me, a remarkably simple way for you to leave your family hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid wealth, to literally blow white people out of the water, to literally have far more wealth in each of your children's pockets than an entire white family. The median white family in America, pay attention now, this is interesting. The median white family in America, their wealth level is less than $200,000 for the whole family, not individual, the whole family. Add the whole family up, they've got about $180,000, $177,000. As a person who knows the math behind how money grows, I can tell you it is remarkably easy for a person who has consistency and patience to accumulate $200,000 in liquid wealth. It's very straightforward. So the $5 a day plan, I did it in two forms. I did it in the ebook that you can get at the allblackagenda.com. I also did it on a video on financialjuneteenth.tv.com, where I just showed you mathematically. I put the numbers into the future value of an annuity calculator and showed after 10 years you have about 30,000. This is under the assumption that the person earns about the average rate of return that the stock market's earned over the last 80 years. And also you can do this by investing literally in just one asset, which would be like maybe an S&P 500 spider, which the spider, SPDR, the spider tracks the entire S&P 500. So you're automatically diversified, right? So you can diversify one of two ways. You can either buy a bunch of stocks at once, at least maybe 20 or 25, or you can just buy something like the S&P 500 spider, which gives you instant diversification. It's like taking a multivitamin. It's like a financial version of a multivitamin, where you take that one vitamin and boom, you got your vitamin D, your vitamin A, your B, your C, your zinc, your whatever you need, right? So this financial multivitamin, you do that consistently, $5 a day after 10 years. The annual rate of return was about 10% based on the average rate of return of the S&P 500 over the last 60 years. But actually, the more appropriate number would have been more like 11.5%. So I actually used a rate of return that's lower than the S&P has given over the last 60, 70 years. And it's far lower than what you would have gotten by investing over the last decade. The last decade's been insane. It's been literally raining money. And black people are missing out on this because we're focused on all these other things. But all the while you're complaining about the fact that you have no money, it's raining money over there. It's been raining money over there, not since 2018, not since 2014, not since 2012. It's been raining money for like 20 years, right over there. But nobody goes over there because, unfortunately, the world is a little bit stupid. Either that or the world wants to keep you stupid. I don't know what it is. But for me, it's very frustrating because you see it. It's like in plain sight. It's the elephant that's literally taking a crap right in your kitchen, and people don't even see the elephant. They don't even smell the elephant crap. I'm just sitting here saying, are you kidding me? There are people that are making insane amounts of money over here, regular people just like you and I, and somehow they've gotten you to put the blinders on so strongly that you literally believe that it's not happening. And so for those of you that get this, what I did the video and I showed you that it's called something like how to be a millionaire in 3 minutes or less, or something like that. Literally, it's like a 2-minute and 30-second video, and I show you graphically exactly what happens. So you invest $5 a day, $150 a month, which is literally like maybe a third of what a lot of people put into their car note. A car note it's not even an investment. That's a terrible waste of money, right? But you got black folks out here that will spend $300, $400, $500 a month on a car note. And then they'll be confused as to why they don't have any wealth, right? Well, if you're putting $400, $500 in a car note and you're not investing the same amount, or at least half of that, then that's why you have no wealth. You're putting the cart before the horse. You're the fat kid who keeps eating dessert and then wonders why he's not hungry when it's time to eat his vegetables. Because you filled yourself up with chocolate cake and ice cream. That's why you keep getting fatter, right? That's what it is. Doesn't mean that you can't have a car with a $400 car note. I've done that. My car note was probably $400. I don't know. Me and Alicia don't drive sloppy cars. But you best believe that I was putting more money into my investments than I was putting into the dang Cardinal. The Cardinal is extra. That's the reward you get for doing what you're supposed to do. Okay, so after 10 years, the number goes to about 30,000. After 20 years, it goes to maybe a little bit less than $250,000. After 30 years, I think it was maybe $300,000 or $400,000. After 40 years, it elevated to maybe about wait, let me scratch that. Let me say that again. 10 years, it was 30,000. 20 years, it was over 100,000. It was maybe I forget everything I just said. I said the numbers totally wrong. 10 years, it was 30,000. 20 years, it was about 113,000 that you would have. Now think about this, right? $5 a day is less than it costs to buy a Popeye's chicken value meal. So anybody that ever tells you that black people cannot afford to invest, you need to just don't answer the question. Just reply to the question with a question by saying, "But can black people afford Popeye's chicken?" They can't. That's a question they won't answer. Their response will probably just be anger. They're just going to get mad at you because people get mad when you present solutions as opposed to more complaining. Because this was less than Popeye's chicken. So $5 a day. After 10 years, they have 30,000. After 20 years, it's 113,000. After 30 years, it was about 339,000. After 40 years, it was $948,000. And that is a person who literally is investing less money than it costs to go to McDonald's, less money than it costs to buy Popeye's chicken value meal. That's phenomenal to me because I don't know. I know white people have a lot of money. We know that, right? And there's some disgustingly rich white people. But most white people don't have $948,000 liquid. Even most millionaires don't have $948,000 liquid. Most millionaires have their money tied up in illiquid assets. So the fact that you have this simple plan where your child can have almost $1 million in assets by the time they're 30, 40 years old is pretty amazing. And the cool thing about it is that $5 a day is a really crappily low number anyway. Like a lot of you can afford $10 a day or $20 a day. So if you do $20 a day, which is $600 a month, now that's a little bit of a heftier number, but I've seen people spend over $600 a month on nonsense and silly stuff, right? Especially you get to where you're making good money. You do that for your child, then you're talking about 4 times that amount. So your child is a multi-millionaire. Your child's got almost $3.5 million liquid. And then what you do is on top of that, you make sure that they learn to put the money into real estate so they don't waste the cash. They avoid debt, don't go too deep in debt, maybe small student loans, but not big ones, because those universities suck up a lot of money that comes in the black community. Even when Joe Biden talks about helping with student loan debt, he's not talking about big numbers. He's talking about maybe $10,000 forgiveness, which for a lot of people, that's a drop in the bucket. That's not going to help you if you owe $150,000 in student loans. So he avoids debt, he buys real estate, and then, my God, if you want him to be filthy rich, making money, just teach him how to be an entrepreneur. Teach him how to find a little hustle where he can make a little money, and then next thing you know, your son's making $100,000 a month, and he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid assets that you planned for him when he was a child. He's fine. There is no that whole narrative goes away. That whole narrative of I'm broke and struggling just because I'm black. There are things that do change because we're black. That's what it says on my shirt, right? Because we're black, I do believe we have to be strategic. Because we're black, I believe that means we have to get off the grid. But because we're black, that means we can't let other people educate our kids. Because we're black, we have to be a little more politically self-determined. Because we're black, we know that we need specific models that will uniquely allow us to achieve our goals and to solve our problems. Because we're black, we're in a whole different situation. But we're also very unique, right? So feel free to go check that out. I get excited about the $5 a day plan because it's simple to implement. A 5-year-old could do it. If you give me a consistent 5-year-old, that 5-year-old will have more money than most of your relatives who don't invest. I guarantee it. All they have to do is do the same thing over and over again. It's really easy to do. All right, so let me keep going. Abrian, could you teach me how to teach Powernomics once I get the certificate? I feel like we are disciples getting this message out. Yeah, what I'm going to do, just so you know, is, in the Powernomics Masterclass, one of the things that I do, and I'll just go and lay it out, I defer to Dr. Anderson. I let Dr. Anderson just, whatever he wants to talk about, I'm going to support that. I'll try to pull the conversation back to where I wanted it to go, but this ain't Boyce's plan. This is Dr. Anderson's plan. I give complete deference to the GOAT. That's what he is, So what's going to happen is once the 6 weeks are done, I'm going to see if he wants to do a couple more weeks at least. But then also, what I've done is actually through the whole process, I've taken detailed notes from Powernomics to lay out broad outlines that will allow all of you who are in the program who get the certification to go teach this to other people. And then also I'll infuse some of the models that come from the Black Business School, like the KID model or the Poise model, or some other models that we have that will allow you the cost model, COST, the new paradigm for Black America, wealth, education, family, and community, the 3 C's for how to build your own economy. These are some things that we've come up with in the Black Business School that are specific models designed for Black people, because your situation is different. It's a little bit, when you are a person that's trying to build an economic system and you don't have a lot of financial capital, you have to be uniquely equipped to identify your other forms of capital that are around you that are not, that don't just look like money. So in a way, think of it like if you go to Mars, they said that one way that there's not very much water on Mars, right? So they were explaining though that really water is H2O, right? So what's that? Is that 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen molecule, or is it the other way around? I was 2 oxygen. I don't know if I was asleep during chemistry class, so forgive me for being stupid right now. But anyway, what the scientists know though is that if you reach into the atmosphere, you can pull your hydrogen and your oxygen molecules together and make water, right? So there's plenty of water, but you just got to make it in a special way. Well, the same thing is true when you talk about making wealth, creating wealth. You've got everything you need in your environment, but it really requires a type of awareness, an economic awareness that allows you to go into that environment and get the resources that you need. So, for example, Black people have trillions of dollars in economic resources that have nothing to do with money. And in fact, actually, I'll give you an example. When there's this big documentary industry that's kind of emerged, right? A lot of people are making these documentaries, and it was very draining. Like everybody wanted me to be in their documentary, and I was like, and somebody was like, "Well, Doc, you should start charging people to be in their documentaries." I'm like, "Well, they don't have any money, right? So that wouldn't make any sense. That wouldn't be right." But there has to be some exchange of value. So we would make other deals. We would start bartering. I'd say, okay, look, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. And that's how, when you see films that we have coming out like Happy, Hapi, we made a deal that didn't involve a transaction of money. In fact, every deal I make with most Black businesses, I try my best not to even talk about money, because my thought is, honestly, I don't even know if you really have enough money to really move the needle. It wouldn't be worth all the fighting that we would have to do. Let's do some sort of exchange of value that allows us to even take money completely out of the equation. And because I understand wealth so well, I can see all the different forms of wealth that have nothing to do with money, right? Long story short, that's what you kind of have to do. So Black economics is very different from white economics. And the reason that many people that go to white business schools don't succeed as independent Black economic wealth builders is because they understand white economics, but they don't understand Black economics. They understand diversity economics or job seeker economics or employment system economics, but they don't understand the type of economics that Black people must pursue in order to do what's necessary for the community. Sometimes it requires you to think carefully about economic security. That's why I have lectures. If you go to Black Money 101, one of the lectures on blackmoney101.com is the keys, the rules for economic self-defense, because your economic situation is part of your defense strategy. The number one way that China controls countries is through their economic system. Like, for example, right now, Jack Ma, the billionaire who runs Alibaba, he upset the president, Xi Jinping, in China. And Xi Jinping took revenge by basically making sure that Jack Ma's latest public offering, this company, what was the company called? A&T, which was going to be worth tens of billions of dollars. He made sure that did not happen because he saw Jack Ma gaining too much power. So he said, I'm going to cut him off at the knees by hurting him economically. So in the rules of economic self-defense, I break down the ways you can protect yourself economically through concepts like diversification or multiple income streams or stress testing or risk management, right? And that's important for Black people because think about this: the best way that they use to control you is to mess up your economic situation. Most black people can't even say what they want to say on Facebook because they're scared of losing their job. So that's the first vice grip they have on you. So if you are an outspoken black person, for example, like I am, I say a lot of things that other people won't say. And people say, oh my gosh, that's so brave that you're saying that. And I appreciate that, but it's not because I'm more brave than everybody else. It's because I'm or better yet, it's easy to be brave when you're in a position where it's easy to be brave. When you got on your armor and you got your sword out, right, and you're fully protected, then yeah, it's very easy to be brave. But when you're out there butt naked with no weapons, then yeah, being brave is a whole different equation. It almost translates to being stupid. But in order to avoid that, you have to think about everything from the ground up. How is a black child raised? How is a black child trained economically? What happened? The biggest mistake you make, big mistake you make is you send your children over to white people to educate them. That's a terrible mistake, right? At the very least, you should be supplementing that education with real education. And then on top of that, you're training them to go work for the people who hate them. So then your child gets to be about 25, 30 years old. They start to see and realize racism and economic competition and how that brings out the worst in your oppressor. And they start getting mad about it. So they start speaking about it, and maybe they form a YouTube channel because they want to complain about it. Next thing you know, they get fired and they're out here starving because they can't eat anymore because whoever they were working for didn't like what they were saying about race and racism, even though it was true. So if you've got a child that is going to be outspoken about these things, then you best prepare your child to be economically secure so they can pay their own bills when the white man comes. Because the white man ain't stupid. He's not dumb enough to give you money so that you can pursue an agenda that's going to undermine his power. I know I wouldn't do it. Seriously, how many of you would do it? I don't think anybody in their right mind would compensate someone to talk crazy about them and tell them how stupid they are. Would you hire somebody to work for your company so they can give them money so they can constantly go out into the world and say horrible things about you? No, you wouldn't, right? So when I became more outspoken as a scholar, when I knew I was going to go public, I spent thousands of hours thinking about ways I could be economically independent and then economically secure, because I knew that opening my mouth about race and racism in America in an honest way in the year 2010 or 2005, when I first got started, I knew that opening my mouth about these issues, even if they were true, was basically me signing my professional death certificate. I knew that at that moment, I could not go to any white university anywhere in the United States, and as liberal and as friendly as those white people pretend to be, they were not going to hire me. It didn't matter that I was trained by the best in the world. Didn't matter I was a good person. Didn't matter how hard I worked. None of that mattered. So I had to come up with an economic system for self-preservation and protection. And then that expanded into bigger things. So anyway, let me read more of your questions. Cameo says, a few chapters back, Dr. Claude Anderson spoke of Indians assisting whites in the process of slavery. Did these Indians have African phenotypes, or were they the more yellow-skinned population? I find this dynamic fascinating because there's evidence of our people being over here before Columbus. I don't know specifically what Indians were going after black people the most. I think Dr. Anderson in Black Labor, White Wealth, if I'm not mistaken, what I like about it is he speaks very specifically about which tribes were doing it. I don't have it in front of me, but he does talk about specific tribes. He also talks in specifics about exactly what they were told to do in terms of hunting the black slaves and how much they were paid. He says you got, like I think he said something like, you get $25 if you brought them back alive, and $20 if you brought them back dead. $15 if you brought back their scalp to prove that you caught them and killed them and scalped them. It was something crazy like that. It was ridiculous. There were factions in that community that were literally hunting down black slaves and scalping them or killing them, and were bringing them back to their master. And this is one of the things that makes Dr. Anderson a national treasure, because you never would have known this. How many of you believed in school that all the Indians were always your friends and always your allies? How many of you believe that? I grew up thinking that, right? So when Dr. Anderson came back with those receipts, it really made me more curious. And it really the big thing that makes me really sad is I think about how much our ancestors lived through that we'll never know. the terrible things that happen to them that we'll never hear about. There are probably, for every story we hear, there's probably 1,000 we'll never hear. And or just little things like the way they use black babies as alligator bait. Did anybody else ever see that? I mean, I didn't know this. I'm sitting here trying to figure out who's savage enough to even think that that makes any sense. Why would you use a baby as alligator bait? But I think that the idea, and this is really kind of a point of reckoning for black people, is that the only way you could do that to another human being and not, drive yourself crazy with guilt is if you don't think of that human being as a human being, right? Like if I harmed a baby, like God forbid, imagine something terrible, like somebody who cooks a baby and eats a baby, right? I know that sounds scary and disgusting, and I apologize if that was too graphic, but imagine somebody who's that sick, right? That's crazy, right? But but think about this. When you eat, anybody ever sat down and eaten hen, and they would have like Cornish baby hens, and they would tell you that these are like baby hens that you're eating, and they taste good, and you have no problem eating them. Like people can eat like a baby hen or a baby chicken, and it's like, yeah, it's a baby chicken, it's a baby hen, who cares, right? But a baby human, it's like, oh God, no, like, oh, that's right. So to me, I think that the reason that white people can do such horrible things to us and still call themselves Christians, still sleep at night, is because the way you dehumanize, the way you're trained to exterminate another group of people is you have to make them subhuman. If they're subhuman, then it's very easy. You're not thinking about this as another human being. The best example was when a guy went to Vietnam and he got there and he shot a couple of Viet Cong soldiers, and he said, I was so traumatized from killing this man that I just said to myself, the whole time I'm in Vietnam, I will never kill another human being while I'm here. And he said, but at the same time, I said to myself, but I'm going to kill as many gooks as I possibly can. Right. So by simply calling them gooks instead of people, he was able, he can kill a gook all day, but killing a person is not, was not something he was ready to do. So when they use the N word in your music, and then the police kill you, or whoever kills you, or you're just dying for various reasons and nobody cares. Well, you got to think about that. You got to connect the fact that no one cares about what happens to you, right? Like the hundreds of thousands of black men and women that are in prison right now that are being beaten, raped, and tortured and everything else. And I've spoken on this, and people think I'm crazy for talking about this, but a lot of it's because they don't see those individuals in prison as human beings. Because if these were white females and every week we told their story on national TV, then people would feel like that was the biggest tragedy in America and we had to fix it immediately. But because these people are seen as subhuman, then it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, we got a bunch of N words in prison. I don't even want to say the word. But we got a bunch of those people in prison, and they're not really people though. So it's okay. Do with them whatever you want, or they're bad people. So it doesn't matter. Let's see. Kendall Green says, you and Dr. Anderson suggested that the Black Lives Matter movement is backed by white liberals. Can you expound on this and provide references? Yes. Basically, Black Lives Matter, if you read their website, you go to blacklivesmatter.org, then they've changed it. Since they've been criticizing this, they've actually started changing the language. But I personally believe that the first thing that came out of your mouth is what you really meant. And they basically said, one of the first things they stated is that their goal was to destabilize the nuclear family. And so they start off kind of talking about black men being shot by the police, but then they spin off into a whole conversation about, transgender, LGBT, etc. And they mention women and children, but they never ever mention black men. And they except for the police part, except for the police killing part, the whole time, the rest of that though, there's no sort of discussion about the state of the black male in general or black families in general. They almost see the nuclear black family as a bad thing, as an enemy. And then the other interesting thing is there's a connection between Black Lives Matter and like Act Blue, where they raise a lot of money there. So a lot of the money that's going to Black Lives Matter is not actually getting to black people. Like Black Lives Matter would not come to me and Dr. Claude Anderson. They would never go to Dr. Anderson and say, we really like what you were doing with Ice Cube and all the other artists that are coming out supporting Powernomics, and we think it's a great plan for building strong black families. We raised $500 million from corporations, so we'd like to give $5 million to the Powernomics Corporation to pursue a Powernomics agenda in the black community. That's never going to happen. because they see individuals like Dr. Anderson as a heterosexual black male who believes in family and believes in building businesses in the community. He's seen as the enemy. He's not seen as an ally. So ultimately, if you really dig down, and I encourage everybody to go see for themselves, go read the blacklivesmatter.org website and kind of look at some of the stuff that's out there. Black Lives Matter is a situation um, where they do care about something. It's just they don't necessarily care about you, and they don't share the same values that we might have, for example, in a Powernomics masterclass. Like they're the kinds of people that would get together and be mad because Ice Cube was going and telling Joe Biden that black people needed something for their vote and that we need to support black businesses. And there's another point I was going to make, because there was one Black Lives Matter activist that was with Roland Martin, and she was basically trying to chew Ice Cube out for what he was doing. And but to give a contrast though, Ice Cube specifically sought out Dr. Anderson's advice on how to present a Powernomics plan when he went to go talk to the administrations on behalf of black people. So we're kind of representing different segments of the black community. It'd be nice if there was some unity there, but it's hard to find the unity if we think economics is incredibly important and you won't even talk about economics. Like there's nothing there. Maybe they'll talk about jobs or social programs, but Dr. Anderson's talking about creating jobs and owning businesses and buying up your block and really having and owning and controlling resources and reparations. Like there's not really a lot of discussion about reparations from anybody. So that's kind of where he's kind of out there on an island. Let's see here. Fred Hayes says, black people attack me with, what are you doing? When I mention a negative point about a black organization, no matter what their education level is. Okay. I think that's more of a statement. I didn't get the question there, but yeah, I can see what you mean. Yeah, everything that looks black is not always good. Just because it's black doesn't mean they have your back. So don't ever get to the point where you think that because an organization is a black organization that is good for you. Some of them are false flag operations. Some of them are white liberalism and blackface. No different from like BET. BET is a black, supposedly a black network, but they're not really black, right? They're not owned by black people. They were owned by Sumner Redstone and his family, and so they have more of it's more Jewish. I mean, the Jewish community is very good at owning media, and so my argument is that I don't think we should spend time being mad at them for owning assets. I think that we should really make asset ownership just a core value in the community, so that way we can actually own assets too. You don't have to have as much money as white people to be liberated from white people. Like, understand, you don't have to break away from white supremacy. You don't have to match white people dollar for dollar. You don't have to do that. You just have to have something that is yours that gives you what you need. And then you can, if you want to build your empire after that, you can do that. But the first thing you have to do is secure your territory. Just secure your space. Like, so if my competitor owns this entire room, I don't need to take the whole room from him. I just need to make sure he doesn't own me. I need to draw a little circle around me and say, this little circle, you can own the whole room if you want to, but this little circle belongs to me. You cannot step in the circle. This is sovereign space. So don't think that solving the black wealth problem means black people having the same amount of money as white people. White people are very rich. China has more total wealth than the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Their GDP has passed the US. But China, on a per capita basis, has a GDP that is far lower than America on a per capita basis. We spend more money on our military than they spend on their whole entire economy. And they have 4 times more people. So America is a filthy, stinking rich country. That's not going to change. So don't get caught up in, well, he's got this much and I've only got that much. Because that creates the illusion. The illusion of the wealth gap is to think that because someone else is really tall, that means you're automatically short. That's the illusion of the wealth gap. And people who don't understand economics, they got so mad at me when I said this, and I didn't care because I have a PhD in this. I know what I'm talking about. The illusion of the racial wealth gap is when you get into this mindset of keeping up with the Joneses. You ever see somebody that's doing really well, maybe making $250,000 a year, but because their neighbor is making $800,000 a year, they're pissed off about that. Like they just can't stand. They're furious. Like they really almost feel like they're not doing well or they're not well off. Or an NBA player who only got $8 million a year on his contract, and then and when he should have gotten 15 million a year, and he walks around complaining like he got robbed and like he's broke and poor and struggling, like I got a family to feed. Like, well, yeah, you can feed your family with $8 million a year. So it doesn't mean that there isn't more out there to obtain, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't go for whatever you want to get. But the downside of capitalism and money and all this other stuff is that if you become obsessed with money and money becomes your drug, it becomes your god. That the god of money is not designed to liberate you. The god of money is designed to enslave you. No different from the way any drug will enslave you if you become an addict. So I'm not a big advocate. I'm not here to teach you to become a financial addict. I'm not here to teach you that you need to have 20 cars in your driveway and everything else. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I can point to you. I saw a video today where they had these wealthy celebrities who are all talking about the same thing. They're all saying the same thing. That basically money does not make you happy. And I knew these things, right? They had the Dalai Lama, and they're saying, well, what you're looking for is inner peace, and what material possessions will not make you happy. And I'm sitting here like, yep, knew that, yep, knew that, yep, knew that too, right? But I guess for some people it's like super profound and like, oh my God, I never thought of it this way. But it's absolutely true. I spend a lot of time thinking about like, what's the meaning of life? Like, what's really going to make me happy? Because I've seen a lot of people that make a lot of money who are not happy. And basically, I realize it comes down to typically about three different things: health, wealth, and relationships. What is your mental and physical health, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have if you're not physically or mentally healthy, right? If you're not happy psychologically, or if you're dying because, from heart disease because you're morbidly obese or whatever, or you got, some horrible disease because you have sex with everybody that moves, those things are going to make you unhealthy, which is going to basically drain your wealth, right? Or you work yourself into an early grave, which happens to a lot of people. So your health, your health is obviously more important than your wealth. And then your wealth does matter too, right? Meaning that you want to have at least enough money to be independent and financially secure. What does financial security look like? It means that if I run into a crisis, I lose my job, I'm going to be okay. A lot of folks make the mistake of thinking that having a job is financial security. There's nothing secure about having a job because you're not diversified. You get all your income from one stream. You get all your income from one source. So if I want to hurt you, if I want to control you, all I got to do is take away that one source, your one lifeline to having what you need. And then on top of that, people will do a double whammy on their financial insecurity by not just having one stream of income, their job, but then they'll live paycheck to paycheck. Well, that's a disaster waiting to happen. You are literally in violation. If I were a police officer giving out citations, I would charge you. I would give you a citation right now for violating one of the most fundamental tenets of financial security imaginable, which is one, getting all your income from one source, and then two, not even having savings and investments and backups in case your income stream stops. So financially insecure people tend to maybe they'll have one source of income. They'll be living paycheck to paycheck with no savings, no investments, no assets. And then they'll wonder like why the whole world collapsed when COVID hit and they don't have any income anymore. I'm not making fun of anybody. I hope this doesn't sound mean. This is just me really giving you, again, this is why the Black Business School is special. Like I know it's special because I don't think they really talk about this so much in universities. Some of you who've gone to college can confirm this. I don't remember that being something that all of our business school students were taught when they were at Syracuse University. But it's very important for Black people to learn it, not just because of, for the same reason white people need to learn it. Everybody needs to learn some of this. But some of it's unique to you as a Black person because you actually have more threats to your security than other people. So if you're constantly under attack, right? Black people, when they're born, it's kind of like you're always under attack from racism, white supremacy, whatever it is, right? If you're constantly under attack, you have to be more secure than other people. And so your financial security is a big part of that. And then the last piece, you got health, wealth, and relationships. Your relationships, what is your relationship with yourself? What is your self-esteem level? If your self-esteem level is low, then you're going to go chasing validation. Well, people who have low self-esteem who are constantly chasing validation, keeping up with the Joneses, well, they're easy targets for overpriced consumer items. They're easy targets for politicians who engage in emotional manipulation. Like if you don't vote, you don't count, or your ancestors died for you to vote, or I need you. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Like you can say things like that to people who don't have any self-esteem or any sort of knowledge. And then also relationships with other people, like your relationship with your community is really important. That's why they work so hard to keep you away from other black people, because when you have healthy relationships with other black people that can protect you and support you, that's another form of security, right? And so basically, when you see things like a high divorce rate, high divorce rates are a huge wealth killer for a lot of reasons. I won't go into all that. I'm sure I've done videos on this before where I've broken down exactly why a string of broken relationships, out of wedlock births, going to divorce court, fighting with your spouse, dating and marrying the wrong people, how that is one of the greatest wealth drainers I see like all around us. If you want to know the opposite of that, that will actually become a prosperity creator, find a way to create peace in your life, right? Find a way to create your inner peace, and then find a way to selectively choose people that are allowed to be in your circle who are going to facilitate and help maintain and add to that peace. If you bring in people that bring disruption to your peace, then right there, that becomes a huge wealth killer. Okay, so anyway, let me go back. Let me go to the next question. I hope that helped. I know it took a long time for me to explain that, but these are the things that are in my head. These are the things I think about every single day, because you always kind of have to have your head on the swivel a little bit and be alert to what's going on around you. And to go back to the earlier point, in order for you to be competitive with white people or to be secure, you don't have to have as much wealth as they have. You just have to have the ability to pay your own bills. That's it. If you have your place and you can pay for that, and buy yourself food and secure yourself economically without having to get up and go to work for a white man every day, well, you've overcome about 80 or 90% of the things that black people complain about the most. The biggest thing black people complain about, it's not, oh my God, today, 5 days this week, I almost got shot by a cop. That just doesn't happen no more, especially those of you that are, over the age of 25. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it's not like every single day you're running from the cops. That's just not a realistic life, right? But what does happen every day is every day you're getting up and you're going to work with these people that you don't like it. They don't like you and you hate it and you feel financially insecure. And then on top of that, you're stressed out because there are all these bills coming in and stuff like that. Those are the things that people think about on a day-to-day basis. So what I learned is that the best way to overcome white supremacy and achieve liberation is to say, okay, what is my life on a day-to-day basis and how do I make that better? That's it. That's it. So when I picked Alicia to be my wife, I said, I'm going to wake up next to this woman every single day. How am I going to feel? How am I going to feel having a conversation with her about breakfast? How am I going to feel going to bed with her every night? How am I going to feel getting up every day? And in a typical day. So I realized that the best way for me to analyze my life was to analyze my typical day and figure out what was wrong with it. And that helped me figure out what I needed to remove from my typical day. Okay, I hate that job. I need to remove that job. I can't stand that person. I need to remove that person. This relationship is bad. I need to remove that relationship. And so each day, it's a great feeling to be insulated from a lot of white supremacy, because I can't tell you any time this week where a white man has done anything that's disrupted anything that I'm able to do. I've just removed him from my system. So I've established a system of black supremacy or a system of black excellence to replace the white supremacist system that I used to be connected to. And the reason that you were even in that system in the first place is because people went out of their way to get you to buy into that system. Because your buying into the system makes that system stronger. They need you in that system. They need your little babies going to these failing public schools because that's how they get their money. They need your sons in prison because that's how the prisons make money. They need you consuming their media because that's how their media makes money. They need you voting for their political parties because that's how the political parties get power. They need you going to their universities because that's how the universities get so rich, right? They need you. They want you there. And so if you don't know who you are, then, when they say if you don't know what you stand for, you'll fall for anything, or something like, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. So if you don't know who you are, then other people will kind of tell you who you are. So that's how you get millions of black people kind of walking right into this this cage of white supremacy. And then it's like terrible. They're in the cage and they're like, oh my God, I hate this cage. But if you back up, this is in mathematics, they call this dynamic optimization. If you start at the end and work your way backward, that's what dynamic optimization does. You start at the end and you say, God, my life sucks. And you back up and you say, how did I get here? Okay, I hate my spouse. How did I end up marrying the wrong person? I can't stand my baby daddy. Well, when's the first moment that I met my baby daddy, and why did I let him get so close to me? How did that work? I hate my job. well, how did I end up in this job? Oh, I get it. When I was 22, somebody offered me a job because I needed money, and I just took the job because all I was thinking about was getting a paycheck. And then before that, I grew up in a household where everybody had jobs. Nobody was starting businesses, so I thought that was the best thing to do. And I became an engineer because telling my relatives that I was going to go become an engineer sounded impressive. So I committed myself to being an engineer when I was 17. I didn't even know who I was, right? And going back, I never learned anything about starting a business or investing and doing all these other things. All I learned was job, job, job. Or I was given the wrong criteria for picking a spouse. That's why I ended up having kids with all the wrong people, right? So you got to back that up, and then you get to sort of rebuild it in the right way, okay? All right, so let me keep going. Let's see. I'm trying to understand how the word margin means in the stock market, how it works. Buying on margin pretty much means that you're buying with debt. And with Robinhood allows people to buy with margin a lot. And margin is an economic accelerator. Debt is like capitalism on steroids. Steroids, if you think about it, right, steroids make you stronger and faster and all that, but then there's the downside, the dark side of using steroids, right? So buying on margin means like you can put up maybe $1,000 to buy some stock, but they'll let you buy $2,000 worth of that stock. Well, that's fine and good if the stock goes up, but if the stock goes down, then what happens is it starts to eat into your equity. Because what they say is look, we'll loan you the money, and as long as you give us back our money, they do you kind of like Big Worm did in Friday, right? Big Worm might loan you money, but you better pay it back, and you better give him his interest. That's all he cares about, right? So if you don't if the stock goes up, everything's great, right? You make all the money, you pay back the loan, you're rich, it's wonderful. But if the value of the asset goes down, the losses are yours. They're not going to share in the losses with you. They're like, look, we have nothing to do with that. We loaned you $1,000. You better give us $1,000. So debt can get you into a lot of trouble. If the stock price drops too low to the point where it eats into your equity and your equity gets below what they call the maintenance margin, then they're going to do what they call a margin call. A margin call means that they knock on your door. They come by like Big Worm rolling up the Smokey in the movie Friday, right? And they say, "Where's my money?" Okay, and you tell them, "Look, the stock market's down. I'm struggling. It's not." They're gonna say, "No. You either need to put more cash into your account immediately to make sure that your equity remains at a certain level, or you have to start selling your asset." So margin is one of those things that causes more volatility in the market because a lot of the young people that are investing with Robinhood are trading on margin, and so when they're trading on margin. And buying options on margin, all this other crazy stuff, then they get these margin calls, and then it causes them, because a lot of them don't have any cash, they have to start selling their stock, which only serves to accelerate the downward spiral in the market. So when there's a lot of margin in the market, it can make things worse and create instability. That's what happened during the stock market crash in 1929. Everybody was buying on margin, and then when the market crashed, no one had the cash to back up the margin. So buying on margin's okay to a point, but you want to always be very careful. Everything that can go up can go down. Let's see, Fred Hayes, any advice on the best way to integrate in the Black community to push Powernomics? Just do it. Like, for example, everybody who's watching has everybody who's watching has a Facebook page or Instagram page or Twitter account or something. If you don't, then that's okay too. Share this stuff. When I was talking to Kanye West, I gave him a lot of credit. I told him one of the first things I said, people don't give Dr. Anderson enough credit for that book, Powernomics. Like, that book really lays out some amazing ideas that can solve some really significant problems. And some people just don't listen. And to Kanye's credit, instantly, right at that moment, he tweeted an image of Dr. Anderson's book and said, everybody should read this book. To give credit to Ice Cube, I told Ice Cube, I said, the Black agenda is something that is not something that we should have to go talk to Joe Biden about. Maybe it's something Joe Biden can find out about after we start executing this. I said, who the hell said that we need anybody's permission to pursue a Black agenda? You don't. So to his credit, he then agreed to partner with me, where we actually bought some copies of Powernomics together, a lot of copies. and we're going to give those copies away to the community. And that was just one little tiny thing symbolically to start making a difference. It's not the overall solution, but there's some other things we're talking about trying to do. So the point of the matter is to say that just do what you can with what you got. Start where you are, right? So if you're sharing, if you see any content online that you think supports these ideas, never see yourself as a just a helpless spectator. You're not. You should be a participant, all hands on deck, everybody do something. You're part of the distribution process. So for example, with when we're building this Black movie industry, we've got this movie Hoppy that just came out. It's all about how many modern day economic systems go back to ancient Africa, right? Kemet, Kush, Egypt, etc. And Taki Grant does a wonderful job of expressing that in this film. I'm an executive producer on the film, but I didn't make this movie. I was in it, and I was an executive producer, but I was not. I did not make this. He did this work for over several years, and the film is really, really good. It's better than the Black Panther. It's better than anything you'll find in Hollywood in terms of content. You know, this is real. You have real life superheroes in your bloodline that you have to acknowledge before you start running off because Disney created Wakanda, right? Disney created Wakanda. That's not real. That's fictional, right? So it doesn't mean you can't celebrate Wakanda and what it represents, but this is real life stuff. You have real life superheroes in your DNA that should be acknowledged as much as you acknowledge George Washington. So this film, if you want to help with that process, we're doing a screening of the film on the 21st. You can go to blackmovienight.net, and you can actually get your pass. And it'd be great to create some blockbuster films that are very successful and very profitable, because that then allows the director to circle back and to say, okay, I can put all my time into this. Because when the community doesn't support these great projects coming out of the Black community, they then have to go beg, Warner Brothers and whoever to make movies. And I can just tell you, I know people that make movies out of Hollywood, and there's a lot of pressure to inject things into those films. You know what I'm talking about, the agenda, you know what I mean? And you have to put these things in your films that you don't even want in your films. But if we have an independent economic base, then we're able to make the movies that we want to see come to fruition. He who pays the bills gets to tell the story. So we got to pay the bills. And that's actually an aspect of what I refer to as economic maturity. Economic maturity, again, this is a concept that you won't find in any textbook that I know of, and they don't teach this on college campuses. This is something I put together in the Black Business School. Economic maturity is something that's required in the Black community because a lot of us as adults treat our money the way we would as if we were a child. So if you ask the 5-year-old and you say to the 5-year-old, here's $40, what are you going to do with your money? What do you think that a 5-year-old is going to do with their money? Answer in the chat. Tell me if anybody has a young child and you give the child a bunch of money, and they're not financially literate. They haven't been trained on economics. So some of your kids are financial ninjas, right? I know your kids are being trained now, but I'm talking about the typical child. What are they going to do with that money? Okay, they're going to buy toys. What else are they going to buy? Put some more stuff in the chat. They're going to eat it. Okay. Candy, maybe Jordan, says Kendall. Kevin, okay, Kevin said eat it. I guess it means like buy some candy to eat. Okay. Buy ice cream. Demetra says, Coach Keith says candy and toys. King Brocco says spend it on gift cards and video games. Candy says Charles. Yeah, that's what kids are going to do. Kids are not, a child is not going to say, well, I got a light bill to pay and we got to make sure we put money in our 401k, right? Your 5-year-old's not going to do that. Your 5-year-old's not going to say, well, the mortgage is due, so we got to make sure the mortgage is paid, right? They don't think that way, right? They're like, I'm going to buy some candy, I'm going to get some roller skates, and then I'm going to go to McDonald's, right? That's economic immaturity. Well, that economic immaturity is being facilitated and perpetuated through media. Anybody ever heard this song? It was by 2 Chainz, and the chorus went like this. It said, I'm riding around and I'm getting it. It's mine, I spend it. It's mine, I spend it. Anybody heard that song? I'm riding around and I'm getting it. I'm riding around and I'm getting it. He says 3 times, I'm riding around and I'm getting it. It's mine, I spend it. It's mine, I spend it. So what you're doing right there is you're programming the subconscious mind with a repetitive phrase that really shapes your culture, that says that if you get money, you should spend it. right? Which is basically in my that's I can in my nerdy way, I'm going to say what's happened there is you have subconsciously internalized economic immaturity, particularly in Black men. So the thing about the subconscious that's really powerful is that Alicia's an expert in the subconscious mind. And I think she'll agree with me on this. The thing about the subconscious mind is that once you program it, you don't have to consciously remind yourself of what you do and who you are. If you say something to yourself over and over and over again, like in music, where you're constantly repeating the chorus, like I got or a Cardi B lyric in the mind of your 8-year-old daughter or whatever, right? Like that's gonna sink in, and then next thing you know, you'll be doing it and you won't even know why, right? So a lot of times we have adults who are economically immature, so they get money, they spend it, right? That's what they think. What do you do with money? I spend it, right? They don't talk. They don't say, well, I invest it and I save it and I do these other things with it. I set goals with it. No, it's like I spend it. So that economic immaturity is something that has to be kind of addressed, because people who build wealth are not economically immature people. They're people who have another model we use in the schools. We call it OPP. OPP stands for opportunity, patience, and perspective. People who build wealth tend to be able to spot opportunities. They can spot economic opportunities everywhere because they're trained on economic intelligence. They know when money appears, when it's not in the form of a job. Some people can only spot economic opportunity when it comes in the form of a job application, right? You don't want to be in that category. Those people are stuck, unfortunately, right? So people who have OPP can spot opportunity. They also have patience, meaning that they can do something like the $5 a day investment plan, which, by the way, you can get that at theallblackagenda.com. The $5 a day investment plan, they can do it consistently. And next thing you know, after 10, 20, 30 years, they've got more wealth than most people, right? And perspective means that they can actually see the forest. They don't get so caught up in the trees, so they can see the big picture of things. They can see where things are going. So someone like that is a person, for example, who might invest heavily right in the middle of COVID, when stock prices have just crashed, like a lot of you guys did, right when the market crashed. A lot of you were investing very heavily because you said this too shall pass. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to, it's not the end of the world. We're not all going to die next week. I'm going to invest because when the world kind of calms down and comes back to its senses, those asset prices are going to go up, and you're going to be doing exactly what wealth builders do. What wealth builders do is they sit on the egg and they just wait for the egg to start to grow. And then it starts growing. And next thing you know, you're elevating economically, and you're not even trying. You're not even trying to do it. Like it's not elevating because you're working extra hours at the plant, or that you're, that you got a second job. And, your wealth is elevating because you planted yourself on top of an asset, and the asset grew in value, which extended your economic height without you doing anything at all. That's the essence of passive income as well, right? That's where you want to be. That's where you're supposed to be. That's where you have to be. If you ever want to be a person that has significant wealth, you must be in a situation where your wealth does not come down to whether or not you chose to work that day, right? You have to get past that point, because being in a position where you only have additional wealth when you work for it, that's really a lot like trying to ride a bike across the country on flat tires. Has anybody remember when you were little and you had a bike and your tires were low? And imagine you're riding on your bike, your tires are flat, and you're trying to go uphill against the wind. Like, you literally are earning every inch of that ride. Like, you literally have to pedal just to go 2 feet. You got to pedal. Like, that's torture, right? That's like the worst feeling that you could ever have as a 10-year-old, is when you have flat tires, you're going uphill and against the wind. It's depressing, right? So people who don't invest, people who only work for their income, work for their wealth, and do that until the day they die, that's exactly what they're doing. They're literally pedaling on a bike with flat tires up a hill against the wind, and then they die at their desk, and nobody cares except for their loved ones, right? The boss does not care. The world does not stop spinning, right? You just died at your desk because for what? What did you dedicate yourself to? You don't even know what you were dedicating yourself to, right? Because you just did it because somebody told you to do it. That's the danger of being a sheep. That's the danger. Like, so being a sheep is very dangerous, because they will have you out here dying for something where you can't even tell them why that's the thing you died for. If you've been given a conscious opportunity to make the decision, you say, no, I died for my kids. Maybe I died for my happiness. Maybe I died for my woman. Maybe I died for my people, or died for my freedom. but I don't want to die for a corporation. But people die for their corporations. If you can't connect the dots, then you will die on that job, and you won't even know why you made that sacrifice, right? So the better way to ride that bike is, so you compare riding a bike with flat tires up a hill against the wind and how hard that is, where you literally have to earn, like you don't move an inch without pedaling, right? There's no momentum pushing you forward. So compare that to the opposite. Compare that to being on a bike where the tires are nice and fat and full, and you're going downhill with the wind at your back, and the bike has a motor on it. That's what it's like to make money as an investor. You are literally, so you're in a race now. You're racing, everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses. So you and Mr. Jones are in a race. Mr. Jones is pedaling uphill on a bike with flat tires against the wind. You're riding downhill with full tires, with the wind at your back, and you've got a motor on your bike. You're going to go 10 times faster than him with far less effort. So the biggest mistake that opponent could even be making from the beginning is to think that the amount of effort you put out is always connected to how much reward you get. Like we can get mad about this. Like you can get mad about rich people who can go on vacation and make more money on vacation than most people can make working double shifts. You can get mad about it, or you can also go learn about it. Right? That is an option too, other than just being mad. And the thing is, the reason I don't get caught up in liberal and conservative politics, and I think it's a flaw, is because all they teach you how to do is get mad. Well, oh, look at that rich man over there. He don't know what it's like to struggle. Well, maybe the rich man struggled just like you did, and maybe he decided to change his behavior or to pick up a different culture so that he could get out of the struggle. There are millions of black people out here doing really well. Like for example, I used to be a person who didn't want to go to places like Martha's Vineyard, right? I talked to my friend about Martha's Vineyard, and I was like, oh, I don't want to go to that place, much bougie black people, blah, blah, blah. And really, it was kind of like after we talked, he kind of reminded me that there are a lot of black people who didn't start off bougie. Some of y'all in here, raise your hand if you are a person who, well, maybe you have relatives and friends who think you're bougie, who think that you got it easy, who think you've always had it easy, but you have gone through all kinds of hell to get to where you are. Like, raise your hand if you're in that category. Like, I raise my hands because there's no poverty story you can't tell me that I don't know. I know what it's like to not have enough food. I know what it's like to not have enough money. I know what it's like to be evicted. I know what it's like to get your car repossessed. Like, I know all these things, right? So you can't outdo me with a poverty story. I was born in the projects. I could probably match you pound for pound for 90% of you, right? So my point is to say that if you can go back to that race, the guy who's on the moped, who's not pedaling at all, who's got the wind at his back, full tires, and going 40 miles an hour, and you're pedaling really hard just to go 8 miles an hour, 10, 12 miles an hour, it's because you're riding different vehicles. Your investing vehicles are different. His vehicle is one that is designed for maximum speed. Your vehicle is designed for maximum torture. So many black people, because America has become so accustomed to using you to build its own wealth, they design the vehicles for the rich to be of maximum speed and maximum comfort. The vehicles of the poor and working class and black people are designed to create maximum torture because you are the mule. You are making money for somebody else. That is what you're trained to do. So what you have to do is understand that in America, you're not in a country that does not have freedom. It's not a perfect country, but there are freedoms you have. For example, you have the freedom to sit here and listen to me. As a person that knows finance at the very highest levels, there's no Wall Street expert who can talk circles around me. I taught people who now are experts on Wall Street. I've taught people who now have PhDs, right? So I know this stuff really well. And you exercise the freedom to take in this information, even though I can be a little crazy and a little long-winded. I know these things, right? But you're choosing to be here. That right there is a reflection of the fact that you have a lot of freedom to get off the grid and shift your thinking. So the biggest adversary you're going to have in this process is probably this person called you. Like the person in the mirror, in my opinion, is going to be one of your biggest barriers to doing what you need to do, because the brainwashing is so deep. It's just so deep. So by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys. On Financial Juneteenth TV, I started doing something called Financial or Black Wealth Confessions, where I let people, I realized that sometimes I don't want to be too harsh with people because sometimes I'll see something, I'll be like, this is so stupid. Why would people do this? And somebody said, well, boys, people don't want to hear a professor call them stupid. Like, that's not very nice. And I'm not calling you stupid. This is more like it's like if you're a good basketball player and you're like, well, who can't hit that shot? That's easy. Sometimes you forget, right, that you're a professional basketball player. So what I decided to do was I created something called Black Wealth Confessions, which is basically a playlist that you can get on financialjuneteenth.tv.com, where I let people submit their confessions. I figured the best way for people to learn is to learn from the mistakes of others. And it's also the best way for you to forgive yourself, so we can kind of talk through some of the mistakes you've made. And I don't know I'm sure everybody in this room has done at least 1,000 stupid things financially, because we're kind of trained to be stupid when it comes to what we do with our money. So I opened up the confessions channel. It's at blackwealthconfessions.com, where you can go in and anonymously tell your story, submit your confession. And then what I do is every week I grab maybe 5 or 6 of them, and I cover the confession like live on the air. So I'll talk about it, break it down, explain what went wrong, and explain how to avoid that mistake. And then that way you become smarter, not by making your own mistakes, but by learning from the mistakes of others, right? And also you can even bring up situations that you might be in right now, right? It could be anything from, love and relationship, stuff that links to your financial situation, to business mistakes you made, to bad mistakes you made when buying a car or spending money or whatever. So the URL is blackwealthconfessions.com. So you go to blackwealthconfessions.com, you can type in your confession, and I cover them on financialjuneteenth.tv.com. So that's where you can actually go to see me break down the confessions of others. Financial Juneteenth TV is really good, so I encourage you to take a look at that. Let's see here. Marlon says, do you agree with the backlash that Ice Cube is getting from the Black community? No, and that's an interesting thing. Ice Cube's backlash, honestly, I believe was a propaganda illusion created by mainstream media to convince you that the majority of people are not happy with what Ice Cube is doing. And let me tell you why. You saw a lot of people on TV saying, what is he doing? This is crazy. And then Saturday Night Live went out of their way. The way you know somebody's feeling the heat is when they start lying, right? And I've mentioned this before. I mentioned it briefly, but on Saturday Night Live, they did that skit where they had the guy, the chubby guy, pretend to be Ice Cube, and he had a big beard like Ice Cube has, and he was wearing a MAGA hat. And they said, "Well, why did you support Trump?" And he said taxes. He was standing next to a guy pretending to be Lil Wayne, and I said, "Wow, that's a deliberate lie. Like, that's a bold-faced lie." That Ice Cube never wore a MAGA hat. He never said he supported Trump. He never said he was doing this because of taxes. So when people start just lying like that, that's because they're concerned about what you're doing. Like, that's how in Kentucky they have that old saying that says a hit dog always hollers. So the way we knew we hit the dog was when the dog started hollering, and then the dog starts lying, and CNN, with their propaganda machine that they've become, which is very unfortunate. I used to think CNN had serious journalists, but I don't feel that way anymore. But CNN was gonna have Ice Cube on, and then they canceled the interview, and because they didn't want to legitimize the idea of Black people getting something for their vote. They were just like, this is a very dangerous idea. And it's like, well, what's dangerous about Black people getting something? Oh, I get it. It's dangerous for the people in power because they want to keep their power and not be held accountable for it. So, long story short, they gave the impression. One thing about propaganda is that one tool of it is that they will make you think that you're in the minority. Like, you'll say, gosh, I like what Ice Cube is doing, but we'll watch TV and everybody will say, oh, Ice Cube is terrible. Ice Cube is stupid. Why would he do this, right? So you're thinking, well, I must be in the minority. Or the whole Black community is mad at Ice Cube. That's not true. That is not true. I have 410,000 subscribers on just one of my YouTube channels. I have 250,000 subscribers on the other, mostly Black. Having 670,000 Black subscribers is about like having 5 million white subscribers, because Black people are only about 13% of the population. So when I went and I surveyed the subscribers, now these are not regular Black people. Black people that hang out on these platforms are not, you're not your typical backward Negroes. Those people are allergic to the stuff that we talk about. But they're a little bit blacker, a little bit more conscious, a little bit more solution oriented, just kind of tired of the nonsense, ready to kind of move forward. So these are not typical Black people. So that should be said, but they're still Black, and there's still a lot of them, a large sample. It's not a random sample, but it's a large sample. I did the survey. I said, how many of you agree with what Ice Cube is doing? And 96% of you said I approve. In fact, right now in the chat, how many of you agreed that it was okay for Ice Cube to demand to say that black people deserve something for their vote? Give me a yes or no. How many of you agree with what Ice Cube was doing? You should, and I want you to say it in the chat so that people don't think that they're alone. So that it doesn't mean you have to agree. You can say no. It's really okay. I won't get mad if you don't agree. But people should see that so they can see just how many millions of people were cheering for this guy when he went out there and loaned his platform to this issue. That's one of the great blessings of COVID, because COVID, what COVID did was it brought everybody inside into the house. So you had a lot of celebrities and hip hop stars and actors and actresses. Ice Cube's all of that, right? He's an actor, he's a filmmaker, he owns a basketball league, he's a rap star, he's still making albums and touring. So I think that what happened is that COVID happened, so suddenly Ice Cube's at home. Like, everything's canceled, all the movie shoots are canceled. Big 3 is on hold until after COVID. The album is out, but we're not going on tour. All the concert dates are canceled. So he's at home and he's catching up on life. Like, that's what happens. You know how you have that time where you're normally at work every day, but then you get those few days off and you start catching up on everything that's happening while you're at work. I think that's what happened. And I think Ice Cube saw that no progress was being made by politicians, that the black people who were supposed to be in charge weren't doing the job. And the thing about Ice Cube is that he's not a passive human being. He's very intelligent, very strategic. That's why, for example, if you remember in the movie Straight Outta Compton, when Jerry Heller tried to take advantage of all the guys in the NWA and gave them all those little BS contracts, all of them signed because, Jerry Heller knew what their trigger points were. He said, I'm going to give these Negroes a bunch of cash and give them a fancy car, and they'll sign away the rest of their life. They'll mortgage their whole future, because he was trying to engage in what Dr. Anderson refers to as the doctrine of unequal exchange, right? So he's an investor. He's got OPP. He sees opportunity. He has patience. He has perspective. Young people don't have any of those things a lot of times. So he put this contract in front of all of them, and all of them signed the contract. The only one who did not sign was Ice Cube. Ice Cube was the only one who had OPP, who said, this might not be a good deal for my future. I don't think let me think about that. Let me get back to you on that. And that's still, and I still see that in his personality. If I say, hey, what do you think about doing this and this? He'll say, let me think about that. And then a day later, he'll text, it's a go, right? And I love that, because that's what the black man is supposed to do. That's what you do when you're in the middle of battle. And that's what I teach my girls to do. You think things through. You look at the big picture. You see how this is going to play out. So Ice Cube, with him going to speak to Biden and speak to Trump's people, first thing, is obviously there's that false conception that he just did it on his own and he did it without thinking about it. That's just not true. Most of you already know this. But then number two, one of the things that you should understand in politics, you got to play the long game. The long game means that sometimes you may lose, but really you won. You see, and it's like that investing. Sometimes you'll see a company where the stock price will shoot through the roof, and you'll be thinking, wow, they must have made a ton of money. And someone will say, no, actually, they lost money. Well, how did a company that just had a loss have a stock price that shot through the roof? And then what they'll say is, well, the reason the stock price shot through the roof, despite the loss, is because they thought they were going to lose $1 billion, and they only lost $500 million. So that's a $500 million win, right? So that's when the stock price will shoot up, because you did better than expectations. So basically, and you're preparing yourself to possibly and eventually make a profit. Eventually, you will make a profit. So in this election, I don't know how people define what wins and losses look like, but I made it very clear that the black man and the black woman won the election before the election even began. That just the fact that we had these sort of last minute surprises that jumped in and really rattled everything in such a significant way means that our power is growing. So to use a sports analogy, it's like if you have a basketball team that's full of, first and second year players, and you expect them to be the worst team in the league. And let's say that somehow they click and they actually make it to the playoffs, and then get to the second round and make a run where they come within a last second shot of making it to the championship. So they lost and they got eliminated, and you're sad, but you're actually excited for the future. Like, you're like, whoa, when this team really gets their thing together, they're going to start winning championships. So basically, the black man and the black woman and the black community and the conscious black movement, the intelligent black people movement, the Powernomics movement, we're not controlling the world yet, but we've shown significant power to the point where within the next decade, we're going to start winning championships. You're going to start seeing these ideas changing the world, right? And it's beautiful because we're still under the radar enough that they don't take it seriously. They just don't. People don't. Because if I were them, I would literally see it as a huge threat. I would either destroy it or I would partner with it. I would either join them or I would flatten them. I wouldn't just let them sort of sit to the side and marinate, because that's what, if you look at the story, for example, one story that reminds me of is when Netflix started creeping up on Blockbuster. So Netflix went to Blockbuster, kind of the way Ice Cube went to Joe Biden. Like he was, I think he was really willing to work with the Democrats and the Republicans. Like, okay, what, can we get in your plan? And so Netflix went to Blockbuster and did something that was that's crazy in hindsight. They offered to sell their entire company to Blockbuster for just $50 million, which literally Blockbuster peed out $50 million over nothing. Like they probably spent $50 million on travel or something, right? Like or on lunch. They like literally $50 million was nothing in the budget of Blockbuster. Blockbuster just kind of blew them off. Like, who are you? You're just this crappy little company. Like, who's ever heard of Netflix? Netflix is nothing, right? So they blew them away. Like, kind of blew them off. Well, what happened was in the background, Netflix was gaining momentum. And Netflix was picking up subscribers at a really rapid pace. And one of the executives in Netflix said that, when they heard the Blockbuster CEO say something that was very dismissive, like, well, Netflix is nothing. Like they'll never compete with Blockbuster. And they looked at their chalkboard where they had their subscriber numbers, and they said, holy crap, if they saw how fast our subscriber rate was growing, they would be really concerned. And so they said, well, don't tell them. Let's stay under the radar. Let them think that we're nothing, that we've got nothing going on. And then we're going to eventually pull out, have a coming out party at some point. And that's what happened. Netflix eventually knocked Blockbuster out of business and now Netflix is worth, what does they have? 195 million paid subscribers. So almost 200 million people give them maybe, let's say it's, $10 a month. So that's literally a couple $1 billion a month that this company's bringing in on autopilot just from regular paid subscriptions. So the point of the matter is to say that things like Black media or these new ideas like Powernomics, there's a movement emerging, and the momentum is very natural, because when you let out the truth is like a cat you let out the front door. Once you let that cat or let that dog out, that dog gonna keep on running. You ain't gonna get that dog back in the house. So anyway, let me keep going. All right, so just so you guys know, some of you are asking about our kids programs. We have a children's program, a business school for children at blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. That's blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. Or you can also check out our financial workbooks and flashcards for children at financialworkbooks.com. So feel free to go to financialworkbooks.com. We design custom-made financial workbooks for children at financialworkbooks.com or blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. Fred Hayes says, I was able to sue my employee because I created more than one stream of income. You mean your employer or your employee? Either way, good for you. Happy for you. And that's true. Having more than one stream of income opens a lot of doors for you. So train your kids to make sure that they have multiple streams of income when they grow up. In fact, you should just really talk to them as if it's crazy to not have more than one stream of income. Like, just literally say it almost like, of course you're supposed to have multiple streams of income. Who would have just one stream of income? Who would have just one job? Like, say it like that, and then the kids will think that that's normal. They'll just think that everybody's doing it, even though most of their friends aren't learning these things. Let's see here. Stephen Maddox, is it appropriate to ask what is a good portfolio balance? Stocks, funds, cash, real estate, precious metals. Yeah, you can ask anything you want, Stephen. The balance depends on how much risk you want to take on. But there are some people who might argue that, something like what they call 60-40, especially for younger people, say under the age of 40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, or maybe even 70-30. But because bonds are lower risk than stocks are, cash, maybe 10% cash, something like that. I keep about 10% of my portfolio in cash. That's my goal. What happens with me, everybody has a bias. My bias is that I like my money to be working for me. So I tend to be low on cash a lot because I'm always looking to put my money to work. I'm not a spender. I don't spend money. I've already, I buy my clothes from places like Target and Walmart. Alicia tells me I need to stop doing that, so I will. I don't want to dress like a complete clown, but I have the car I want. We like our house. There's nothing to spend money on anymore, to be honest with you. So basically, I am a maniacal investor. That is my bias. Money is very psychological. It's very psychological. So like what you do with money. If you want to understand who you are, like look at what you do with your money. That'll tell you a lot about your values. It'll also tell you a lot about your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And what you can do is kind of, if you understand your own financial psychology, your own financial personality, then you can cater your financial situation to match your personality. So, for example, my weakness used to be that I used to spend. I used to overspend money, and I would get money and I would just spend it away, and it was really hard to hold on to it. So what I started doing was I would trick myself by having money taken out through direct deposit, so that when I got my paycheck, the money from my investment accounts would be taken out before I even had a chance to see it, because my brain would just kind of, assume, like my brain would just work with whatever was there. So I knew I had to take the money out before boys saw it. I know that sounds crazy to say it that way, but it's literally, that's how I felt. It's like, okay, I don't need to see this, because if I see it, I'm going to go crazy and I'm going to want to spend it. And in fact, another funny thing was I'm a veteran of the child support system. And so, yeah, I do have a PhD in finance. I was actually the only African American on the planet to get a PhD in finance during the year 2002. No other black man that I know of, or black woman I know anywhere, got that degree that year. I don't know. I didn't meet another person, but that's not that. But the point is, like, because somebody was asking, do you have a real PhD? So yes, I do. But the interesting thing was, despite the fact that I had all this, knowledge, this book knowledge, and this theoretical understanding of finance, which is very real, if your personality is out of whack, then it's not going to work. It's like if you are a person, you can know all the greatest fitness and dieting techniques on the planet, but if you don't have the basic discipline or desire to eat right or to exercise every day, which is a completely different side of your personality you got to draw on to get up at 6 a.m. to work out or whatever it is you got to do, then it doesn't matter what you know. And a lot of you go through this. I mean, a lot of you know what you need to do to make your life better. A lot of you might know what you need to do to lose weight. When I was overweight, I knew what I needed to do. It wasn't like it was complex or rocket science, but I just didn't want to do it, right? So my personality flaw, and my grandma helped me pick up on this, actually, because my grandma never went to college. She never had even a bachelor's degree. She had an associate's degree. She never made more than $22,000 a year, but my grandma always had perfect credit, plenty of money in savings. She paid off her car. She had no debt. My grandma was financially tight in every way imaginable. So how can a woman with 5 kids that she raised on her own, making no more than $22,000 a year, always be financially secure when the median net worth of a black woman in America is $5? It's because of her personality. My grandma was born in the middle of the Great Depression. My grandma had a way of looking at money where she was always thinking about her financial security. So my grandma did not let go of a dollar. My grandma didn't get caught up in the silly stuff. My grandma was not a big risk taker. So you got to know what your financial personality is. So my personality was that I like to spend, spend, spend. So I had child support. I had a baby when I was 18. That was a mistake to have a child that young. I didn't do it again. But I had to pay child support, which is what you're supposed to do when you're a father. And I hated writing that check. It was so big, and it was so stressful, because I did not like paying money and not having any say in what happened with that money. Right? It felt like taxation without representation. It really did. And so, because I was so furious about writing that check, I said, you know what? Don't ask me to write the check, because I don't know if I can actually write this. I have no problem taking care of my child, because I know I'm supposed to do that, but I cannot physically bring myself to write this check. So what I did was I just had the money taken out of my account, right? And then the other thing I did, because I realized I was overspending, was I'm sitting there looking at my budget, and I'm like, I'm looking at the budget. You ever go through your budget where you're like, okay, I gotta cut something out, but you don't want to cut anything out because you feel like you need everything, and you're going like, okay, don't want to cut that, don't want to cut that, don't want to cut that, can't cut that, right? And then you don't have anything you can cut, right? Well, it is very painful to have to be a cost cutter when that's not comfortable for you, when you don't enjoy that, right? Not everybody's built to think in that way, because my interpretation is that that's almost thinking in a scarcity mindset. That's a mindset where you say there's only so much money and we have to make it last, right? So what I did was I said, let me flip to the other side of that equation. Maybe instead of thinking in a scarcity mindset, I can think in an abundance mindset. So an abundance mindset says, oh, there's plenty of money out here. I just got to find a way to go out here and get it. So either way, it's going to be hard. No matter which choice you pick, it's going to be difficult. So I was like, which is more difficult? Cutting costs, which I don't want to do, or finding a way to make more money? Because if I increase my income by 10%, then I can keep spending what I spend and still save twice as much as I'm saving right now, right? So this is where having a big economic toolkit can be really beneficial to you. If you know how to go out and make more money, then you don't have to put pressure on yourself to pinch every single penny and squeeze blood out of every nickel that comes through, right? You don't have to feed off masses crumbs. You can have a feast for yourself every day, right? So what I find is that people that are trained on wealth building, investing, and entrepreneurship, they tend to have a space where they have an abundance reality, right? So entrepreneurs, really good ones, what they tend to do is when they need more money, they don't necessarily always go into serious cost-cutting mode. Some of them do, but not so much. I've seen other entrepreneurs who will say, we need another $5,000, so let's change our marketing strategy, or let's form a strategic partnership that's going to generate another stream of income, right? So give your child, different tools that they can lean on that will help them solve economic problems that go beyond simply cutting costs, right? And the reason that skill is also important is because a lot of you, let me ask you guys a basic question. How many of you have student loans? How many of you have either had them or have had them before? And how many of you hate them? How many of you have had student loans and just hate your student loans and are just mad about it? Like wish you could get a refund and everything else and give the degree back in fact. Okay. Well, the thing about student loans is you're put in this really awkward position where you're given this massive amount of debt because you overpaid for an education. Education shouldn't cost you $200,000. It shouldn't. But the price went up because education is what in economics we call this an inelastic commodity. Because education is an inelastic commodity, meaning an inelastic means you have to have it. Like crack. Like if I'm a crackhead, I'll pay any price for crack. If I love cigarettes, I'll pay any price for cigarettes. Or maybe makeup and hair products. Like people are gonna pay for their makeup and their hair care products, no matter how bad the economy is. People will spend their last dollar to get their weave right? So education is like, it's almost as necessary as like getting your hair done. So you can increase the price of an inelastic commodity and people will keep paying that higher price. So college is this inelastic commodity. And also simultaneously, the value of the dollar in the education space was pushed down or through significant inflation, where they suddenly provided all these student loans that we thought were actually helping people, but you're hurting people because you're providing all this financing. So universities can increase the price of tuition to insane levels. And because people feel like they need that education, they're still going to sign on no matter what the price is. And then the government comes in and says, oh, don't stress out over the price. Just go ahead and sign this piece of paper. It's much cheaper for me to sign a piece of paper than it is for me to pull $50,000 out of my pocket, right? So I signed the piece of paper because, well, it's the future. Who cares about the future? I'm 18 years old. I don't care what happens to me when I'm 40, right? So you sign this piece of paper. They balloon you up with all this debt to get this degree. And it's basically a standard investment, just like you would do with buying a factory or a car dealership or something. So you're making an investment where you took on some debt to obtain ownership, to acquire an asset, right? So what is the asset? The asset is what they call human capital, which is this college degree, which is this certification, this piece of paper that you can then use to earn additional income. Well, the reason that becomes a flawed economic model and a bad investment, that's what we call in finance, we call that a negative NPV project, a negative net present value project, meaning that the amount that you're borrowing is far too high for what you're getting, right? the amount that so buying a business or buying an asset or buying a home or buying a college degree is not always a good decision, because sometimes you can end up borrowing more than the asset's actually worth. So you're borrowing all this money, you borrow $200,000, and you go land that first job, which pays you like 40 grand. And then maybe after 5 years of hard work, you get up to 50 grand. And maybe after 20 years of hard work, you can get up to 65 grand. And you're still trying to deal with all this debt, even though your bills eat away at all your income. So you're stuck in this really difficult, impossible position where you're like, okay, I just mortgaged my whole life. In order for me to pay back this $200,000, I'm going to have to basically work until I'm 70. And then I can start building wealth when I'm 70. And then I'll be free when I'm 70. Well, that's a really depressing reality to be in. Nobody wants to be in that reality. So if you are in that reality, or you've seen someone in that reality, what they need is they need an economic accelerator. They need basically, it's like it's like, think of it like a basketball game, right? Where I'm playing against the Los Angeles Lakers, and they've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis and all these other big, tall guys that are all 6'5" and taller, and they're all professional basketball players. And I've got like me and Ice Cube and Dr. Claude Anderson, right? And we're all trying to go out here and play physically against LeBron James, right? Now, I don't know what Dr. Claude's jump shot looks like, but I doubt that we would win that game. Like, we probably wouldn't win a basketball game like that, right? But how can we win that game? How can we defeat that basketball team? Well, we could go sign some athletes, right? We can call up. We can find the Greek Freak. I think that's his name. I can't pronounce his real name. He's got a crazy long name, but he's really good. He's 7 feet tall. He can guard LeBron. And maybe we'll go sign Kawhi Leonard, right? And then we go get some other athletes on the team, and we build a team that can actually take on the Lakers, right? So the same thing is true with taking on your debt. In order for you to take on your debt, you have to go build the right economic team for yourself. And what is your team? Instead of actual players, your team is your streams of revenue. Right now, your one stream of revenue from that measly little job is tiny compared to the massive debt that is sitting in front of you. So you've got to strengthen your game and find a way to get some other streams of revenue, maybe 2 or 3 other streams that are bigger and stronger, which will allow you to conquer that debt. Because paying back, say, $2,000 a month in student loans is really, really hard if you're making 65 grand a year. But paying $2,000 a month in loans is really easy if you're making, $400,000 a year. There are a lot of Black entrepreneurs out here who started businesses in their 40s who are making $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year. I was at an event with Lamar Tyler's group, the Traffic Sales and Profit Group, this weekend. I think he said they had 20 or 30 millionaires, people that make over $1 million a year, Black entrepreneurs, regular people like you and I, who had jobs and hated their jobs, quit their jobs, and started maybe a hair care business, and were making millions of dollars a year. So I encourage you to expand your economic arsenal. Like, literally start from scratch in terms of how you think about economics, how you teach your children to think about economics, because we need to literally ball up the whole old game plan, like literally crumple it up, throw it in the garbage, and rebuild from scratch. Somebody asked, is this live? Well, you know what? Even if, I know that people ask that, and then I answer live, but then I'm like, well, does it really make a difference if I'm live or not? Even if I wasn't live, it wouldn't matter. Okay, let me answer some more questions. And by the way, guys, financialjuneteenth.tv.com. That's one of our platforms. It's a YouTube channel. It's totally free. I encourage you to subscribe. That's also where every Monday night, Lene, Javette, and I, we do our Black business pitch competition. So if you have a Black-owned business, we want to give you free advertising like we do. We pick 3 every week, and we allow them to submit a 90-second pitch for their business. And so not only do you get free advertising to all the people that watch, thousands of people that watch the show, but also you get free feedback from the audience. So we're helping Black businesses get stronger. Black businesses will get as strong as we make them. That means that we have to support them with knowledge and information. We have to support them with consumer support. We have to support them with investment and enthusiasm. So with Life's a Pitch, if you are a person that supports Black-owned businesses, you'll like it. If you are a person who has a Black-owned business, you'll gain from it, even if you're not on the show. If you're on the show, you really gain, because all the businesses that come on the show that do a good pitch end up getting more customers, And if you want to make a business strong, all you got to do is get more customers. And we have plenty of what we need right here in our community. So it happens Monday night at 8 o'clock. Go subscribe to financialjuneteenth.tv.com. That's financialjuneteenth.tv.com. And you can actually sort of be on the, and then also if you want to actually know when we're reaching out to find people that want to make pitches, just make sure you're on our email list. Some of you are already on the email list. If you're not on the email list, you can go to allblackeconomics.com. That's allblackeconomics.com. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Can you remind everyone about the Happy Blackbuster presentation next Saturday? Yes, we're showing the film Happy, HAPI, which is about the economic roots of the roots of modern economic systems and how they link back to ancient Africa. That's going to be on the 21st. It's directed by Taki Grant. Professor James Small is in there. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Sharif Abdul Malik. I'm in the film. A lot of other great people. Dr. Julianne Malveaux. And it's really a great exploration of how you guys were the economic pioneers. I mean, those of us who have African roots on any level, we're the originator of everything. Let's see here. Vertex, what is the difference between vertical and horizontal business integration? Vertical integration is where you're kind of controlling the whole process, right? So if you have a product that like a car or something, vertical integration would be where you have ownership in everything that goes into making that car, right? Everything from the design of the car to creating every part for the car, to actually putting the car together, to selling the car and delivering that car to the customer. That would be vertical integration. Horizontal integration would be more broadly spread out, where you're sort of hitting different different sides of business to the point where you can form a monopoly because you're connected to 4 or 5 different industries or different kinds of products. So horizontal is more broad, whereas vertical is deeper. Vertical is deeper. Okay. So let me see here. And Dr. Anderson's a big advocate of vertical integration. Let's see here. Vertices, can we, your business school, follow up in 1 year, 2 years for those who will save $5, $10, $20 a day to see possible success stories? Yeah, we can. And also, if you have a success story from investing, one way you can really help the Black Business School, it won't cost you anything, but it would really help us a lot, is can you email or send a short video, maybe a YouTube link or something of a video that you want to do of a success story. Like, I love it when people talk about what they're doing with their kids. We love it when people talk about how their life has changed. I know a lot of you in here have seen your life change because in the Black Business School, we know we can change your life. Like these are things that work. This is not just theory. These are not just things that we're talking about. These are things we're actually doing. Like, we're building a movie industry. We generated tens of millions of dollars, throughout time. So these are things that are actually real. But you can help us make it more real by submitting your story. The email address is support@theblackbusinessschool.com. You can email our support team at support@theblackbusinessschool.com, and they stack up these testimonials. And that's important for the Negro naysayers, because you got the Negro naysayers who literally, you think that discrimination against Black businesses comes from white people. That's not our big problem. White people just kind of ignore us. The biggest discriminators against a Black-owned business are Black people who sort of look at us and say, who the hell are you to have the audacity to think that you can own a school, that you can actually run a university? It's not as good as the white universities. Like these are white supremacist mindsets that white people can run universities, but a Black man, even when I show you, look, my PhD is just as good. In fact, I was better than the white students in my class. They don't believe it. Because they're not accustomed to seeing Black people elevating at a level that exceeds that of white people. We're not just as good as your white university. We're better. We're not just as good as the HBCUs. In the areas of Black wealth creation, we are better because we have models that deviate from the traditional stuff that's taught in these schools. A lot of what you're taught in the standard business school is how to go get a job building somebody else's business. We teach you actually how to be the job creator. We talk about financial security from a completely authentic, from scratch sort of way, where we say, okay, what are our biggest problems as Black people on a day-to-day basis? How do you link Black wealth building to what's going on with our families? How do you talk about violence in the hood and how that links back to Black economic infrastructure and the ownership of communities? So most of our models, all of our models, none of our models are in anybody's textbook. These are things that we put together for scratch uniquely for the Black community. So we are here for you. So We don't care about anybody else. We're here for you, Black first, 100%. So if you could tell your story to help us deal with the Negro naysayers, I would so appreciate that. Our support team is awesome. They're right there for you if you have any questions or any issues whatsoever. We invested heavily in a great support team just to make sure that we didn't have any weirdness where people can say, oh, well, I was in the Black business school and they ripped me off. They just, no. We have 30-day, 100% money back guarantees. We have things that universities don't have, like free trials, $1 trials. We have all different kinds. We have a big, gigantic team of people that are just sitting there waiting for you to tell us what the issue is. So if somebody ever says, oh, well, I was in a Black business school and this terrible thing happened to me, well, you should just ask them, well, did you email the support team, the massive, gigantic support team they have of specialists sitting there waiting to talk to you and to help you? We have our people right there. So email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. They're there for you. We just want to make sure you're as happy as possible. So feel free to reach out and give it a try. All we ask is that you give us the same opportunity that you gave whatever other university you might have given $100,000 to. So please feel free to give it a try. All right. Did you say $9.99, doctor? No, I didn't. I don't remember saying $9.99 for anything. So let's see. Bertus says, how many families, businesses, schools, parks, etc. does it take to have a community? There is no flat number. It's just as many as you can have. I think the way I see Black power, community power building, I wrote a book on this that's actually for free. You can get it totally free at allblackeconomics.com, called Wealth, Education, Family, and Community, A New Paradigm for Black America. I think this book has been read by over 1 million people, or we're getting close to that number. And I wanted this book to be for free because this shapes a big chunk of our vision for the next 50 years. We have Project 2070. I don't have my eye on 2020. 2020 is like a side note in my mind. That's a footnote. The real prize comes in the year 2070, where Black people are the most financially literate, most financially capable, most financially sophisticated group of people on the planet. And basically, with this layout of the model, it was basically something where I said, if you take those 4 things, wealth, education, family, and community, and we reshape how we view all those 4 areas, we can have the most extraordinary, most excellent, most outstanding community on this planet, right? Wealth, meaning that all of our children are trained on financial security and financial literacy at the highest levels at an early age, trained as well on wealth building as they are on football, basketball, rapping, and twerking. Education, we educate our own children. We stop letting other people do it for us because they're doing it wrong and they're doing it terribly and they're teaching you to become your own worst enemy. We have to take over the educational process. That's a very radical idea. I know it's radical to think about Black people educating Black people, but it's not radical for white people to think about educating other white people, right? So it's not radical for white people to think about educating other white people, but somehow it's incredibly radical to say that Black people should educate Black people. That's insane to me. Number 3, family. You lost your families during the great Holocaust of the Biden crime bill. Mass incarceration was a Holocaust that was inflicted on your community that affected millions and millions of people. Millions of families were destroyed because of this. There's going to be a lot of trauma that's going to take 2 generations to unfold most of this, right? So you must put a concerted, conscious effort into strengthening your families. So Black family is Black consciousness. Your family must be pursued in a conscious way. So that means, for example, as a Black man, I felt I had to consciously make sure that when I got married, I married a Black woman. It's not that there aren't pretty white women out there. I'm sure that they exist, but they're not for me. I wanted to dedicate my time to a Black woman because that's the best thing I can give anybody is my life. So I had to give that to the Black community. And make Blackness my full-time job, not my part-time job, not something I do in my spare time, but something I do with my main time. But then also, once you decide to form a bond with someone else, like once I decide to form a family with this woman, well, guess what? I need to go and really see how I can put tremendous effort into making sure that we deal with our trauma properly. Because so many Black people have been traumatized, right? My biological father abandoned me before I was born. My stepfather, we had some challenges growing up. There was a lot of things I saw as a young Black man that traumatized me. She grew up in Gary, Indiana, for God's sake. I mean, that was the murder capital of the world when she was right there in that city. So you got a lot of stuff to work through. That's my point. So in order for the relationship to last, and this is an economic power play, Black power is Black family. So to protect our power, we have to protect our relationship. So that means that little things that a lot of us don't want to do, like having a therapist help you, or we call it our relationship coach, but we have somebody that helps us work through our bullshit. so that I know when I'm full of crap, so I know how to treat that woman to the best of my ability, and also how we can raise these kids properly to have the right amount of consciousness they're supposed to have the right amount of unity, where I tell the sisters, stop fighting with your sister. Your sister is your best ally. You're supposed to protect her. You're supposed to stick together. You're supposed to do things together. We plant those things when they're young in hopes that that'll manifest when they get older. Do you follow me? And then the last piece is community. Community follows naturally if you take care of wealth, education, and family. So you have a bunch of families that are together, that are financially secure, that are educated in a proper way, in a black way, and they also they're strongly unified, right? They're not spending all the time fighting; they're spending more time building. Well, then that forms a great community. If you have 50 families that are all well put together, that have worked through their BS, that have learned how to love each other, that are financially secure, those are the best builders in the world. Like, those are the greatest people you can get with and say, okay, y'all, how are we going to get together and make some more money? I have an idea. My friends down at the real estate firm, I see these clients come through and they've got a lot of money, and here's what they need. Oh, wow. Well, I've got an extra $10,000. I'd love to put to work. So let me be the first investor. Oh, I've got some spare time. I can volunteer to help out with the business until we get it off the ground, right? Next thing you know, you built an economy. And in order to do that, though, you've got to have these building blocks so that everybody is clear, ready, prepared, and on code. It's no different from building like a great basketball team. Everybody's in shape, everybody's skilled at their position, everybody's unified in the mission and purpose of the team, and everybody's there to kind of help the team move forward, and nobody's scared, and everybody's mentally prepared to win. Right? That's how you compete. That's why I hate saying this, but that's why I truly believe I've come to this conclusion that as we move forward in this whole movement, we're going to have to leave a lot of people behind. We're going to have to just let them live, let them be free them from whatever we're doing that's frustrating them, so they can go be over there and do what they're going to do. And you go get together with the people who think like you so you can do what you got to do. And then you come back and get them later. Because once you become wealthy and powerful, it's easy to get the sheep on board. The sheep just follow along. They're like, bah, bah. They just kind of follow along with whatever seems popular. Like, for example, when I first started talking about black economics and everything else, a lot of people were laughing at me, ignoring me, weren't paying attention to me. And then when it became the most popular thing in the world, and I'm on shows like The Breakfast Club and all this other stuff, then suddenly everybody's jumping on board with this because now their favorite rapper is rapping about buying the block and investing, and they're hearing about Nas making all his money from investing. Well, all this came out of this movement. If this movement did not happen, then these rappers wouldn't be rapping about wealth and all these things. Jay-Z wouldn't be doing 444. These things happen in the background. It's because, no matter what level of platform we had, no matter who was listening, we've always been consistent with this. That's one thing. I mean, if anything in life, you ain't got to be perfect, but the least you can do is be consistent and be devoted. Like, it's like dealing with your kids. Like, your kids will drive you crazy. They'll hurt your feelings. They'll make you mad. They'll do stuff that's all over the place. But you ain't got to be all over the place. You can be consistent. So in a way, dealing with crazy Negroes is like dealing with your children. So whenever you see a crazy Negro acting a fool, somebody who don't know what he's talking about, but he's doing all the talking, somebody who don't know what's going on, but thinks they know everything, just deal the way you deal with your 12-year-old when your 12-year-old wants to come and tell you how life works. You just kind of say, okay, and then you remain consistent. You continue to be you every day, all the time, no matter what. And eventually, one day, the child learns the error of their ways, and then next thing you know, they're circling back around and leaning on what daddy told them all along. Okay, so be the rock, be consistent. That's how you win. That's how you succeed. And I hope that I'm an example of that, because if anything, I might be a little crazy, I might be a little wild, I might say some things that piss people off, but you cannot say that I'm not consistent with this. You cannot say that. You can't say that. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna go, guys. I enjoyed talking to you. I expected to talk maybe about an hour, and I've been on here for 2 hours. And Alicia's patiently waiting. And I got to make some business calls. So blackmovienight.net. Blackmovienight.net is where you can get your pass if you want to join us to watch the movie Happy, HAPI. We're gonna do that on the 21st. It's a great film. Some of you saw the sneak peek, and it was really, really good. You love that. You saw 10% of the movie. So I encourage you to come join us for the other 90%. Also, if you want to log in and check out the recordings of the sessions with Dr. Anderson and everything else, you can go to powernomicsmasterclass.com. That's powernomicsmasterclass.com. And one more thing I can give you guys, if you haven't started investing in the stock market yet, just go to firstshareofstock.com And there's not only a free training on how to buy your first share of stock that's really easy for me to show you, so you don't have to be afraid. But also you'll get more free information from the Black Business School. So some of you, have signed up, for different programs and things like that. Some of you are still kind of not sure and trying to figure it out. Well, we're here. We're here to answer questions. We have nothing to hide. We want to see you succeed, and we just want to do our best to help you. So feel free. I hope you'll just give it a try, and feel free to bring your children along. Our financial workbooks are at financialworkbooks.com. Those are financial workbooks and flashcards for children. That's financialworkbooks.com. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good day. It was great talking to you. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.